On this episode, hear about what we're seeing out in the field when we compare Saltro versus ILEVO. We also look at what fungicides did on fields this year. Turk has a weather update, and it's a race to get ready for a safe and successful harvest. Stick around for Joe's corny joke of the week. If you're listening to Cup of Joe as a podcast, head over to our YouTube channel to see the photos featured in this episode.
Hi, this is Joe Merschman. Welcome to Cup of Joe. Season number 3, episode number 6. Today we have all our regulars back. We have Tommy and we have Turk and Ben. And as always, we like to start with Ben because he's the guy in the field right now and everybody's thinking about yields and what's going to happen this year. You know, the anticipation, it's almost like Christmas, and you know, the presents are coming and what kind of yields we're going to get. I know you've been in the field. What do you got for us?
So this week I've been having some questions from customers and people all over our sales territory asking about how well is Saltro holding up against sudden death, and the big reason is they want to know for next year, you know, we're starting to order seed, how well is it, you know, setting itself up. So I asked Pat Foley, our Syngenta tech rep from their seed care portion of stuff, and he forwarded me on some, I would call it anecdotal evidence, but good evidence showing that the Saltro portion of things actually is hanging up. So on the second page of the PowerPoint that Alex is going to put up for us here, you can see that there is sudden death pressure, and this comes out of, this is a Illinois photo from September 2020. It's showing that there is a little bit of sudden death pressure. The above ground symptoms in the ILEVO versus the check, the ILEVO is better than the check, but not by a heck of a lot. And then there you look over to the Saltro portion versus the check, and the Saltro is definitely hanging on. So if we go to the next page, we have our Nebraska field trials, and these pictures these pods were pulled in August of this year, and it's got 3 different locations where Saltro is compared to ILEVO. And just like what we did with our tripidity test last year with the pods, all that you have to do is look at the pile or the size of the pods, and the Saltro is consistently a little bit, though the piles are bigger. So from a yield standpoint, I think the Saltro is standing out. From a disease index, I think the Saltro's definitely hanging in there, and I think it's something that we can finally check the last box. Compared to checks, we know it works. Compared to checks that we've had in our test plots and in the areas, we know that the Saltro is definitely suppressing sudden death, but we want to make sure it's as good of a product as ILEVO. And at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what the disease index is, it matters how much it yields.
That's correct.
So I think that we can finally check our final box. The combine is definitely going to do that for us, but it's definitely something that we can look at. So I'm pretty excited. I'm happy with how things look out of those slides.
Yeah, and it kind of ties in with the what we showed last week too. You know, the Saltro is going to give you a little faster emergence, particularly in cold, wet conditions, particularly if you got PPOs on, where you know that we don't have that autotoxicity issues, stunting that comes with ILEVO and under certain conditions. So Saltro going to give you quicker, faster emergence, and we've seen last week that quicker, faster emergence seems to add more pods.
Right. So then we can also rewind the clock back a little bit and talk about what we've talked, I don't know, probably 2 months ago about fungicides and how important fungicides are.
Foliar fungicides
when it comes to corn and soybeans. And I'm a person that typically suggests it just because we don't know what the growing season is going to be like after we apply that fungicide, but we know that with the fungicides we have now, they're so good that they have longer residuals, they have more modes of action, they mitigate stress, they add health. And Alex can go ahead and put this picture up now talking about it's the same soybean plant, planted the same date, same variety, and there's a split that goes down through the field. It's an early variety. It's probably I'm going to guess a 3.0 to a 3.6. I'm not sure which bean it actually is in the picture. Do you know?
I think they're Kennedys.
They're Kennedys, okay. So we have a field on the left-hand side that is completely defoliated and probably ready to harvest or getting close to it. Then we have a field on the right that is just now starting to lose its leaves. Why is that important? That's important because the field on the right more than likely is going to out-yield the field on the left because of it's had longer time to fill pods. It's been healthier throughout that growing season when it comes to setting pods, and it's probably going to have even better seed quality if we're looking at it from a seed grower standpoint.
So the right side had the fungicide?
Correct.
Left side just planted it, and that's the way it is. Now, from what Danny was telling me, from our regional manager in Southern Illinois, is that the seed quality was very, very poor on the left side where they're it looks like it's ready to harvest.
Right, and that's
shriveled beans and diseased beans and different things like that.
Right, so we're on season 3, so we can go back 3 years ago and watch this. Probably one of our first or second episodes. We talk about what phomopsis is, and they've had so much rainfall down there that the disease and stuff has set in, and once the disease sets in, the beans defoliate, and now we're looking at harvest. They're continually getting these rains that we're getting right now, and there's a lot of shrink swell that goes on. There is pod and stem blight that goes on. There's stem canker that goes on, and all of that comes into this thing we call phomopsis pod and stem blight, and that's what Danny was showing in those pictures. And I think we can show one of that picture too, where there's white fungal tissue wrapped around the beans. There's split beans. There's just damage, and that's going to affect storage quality too. Mm-hmm. So fungicide, there's lots of things because we don't know what's going to happen after R3 on soybeans or after tassel when we apply it, but fungicides is one way to mitigate those stresses, and that's the reason that we can always market. It's easier to make more money marketing more bushels than it is to try to find the right price. I'd rather market more bushels.
Or be lucky on weather.
Or both. If you can get all 3, you can try to get all 3.
The one thing to note is that why there's such a dramatic difference is it is a very early soybean for that region.
Correct.
And normally early soybeans, they go through more stresses. The pod fill is in the heat of the summer, and they'll have more stresses. So your disease magnification is much higher on those early beans. Wouldn't you say, Ben, in that situation?
Yeah, and that's definitely an exaggerated version. Like if your normal bean range in that area is a 4.2 or a 4.5, and you spray it versus fungicide versus non, you're not going to see that drastic change like what you're seeing here. But I've seen pictures. There's lots of, all that you have to go is go to BASF, go to Corteva, go to any one of their Twitter pages and look at what their corn difference fungicide versus not did this year when a lot of guys were like, well, I'm not sure I want to spend the money on the fungicide. There's dramatic differences in the check strips.
Yep.
Absolutely dramatic differences, and I think you're going to see 15 to 20 bushel yield advantage on corn and 10 to 15 bushel yield advantage on beans if those beans didn't drought out in areas like western Iowa or the sand fields or things like that. But for the good majority of the growing region, I think the fungicide, again, it's another one of those years where it paid off.
So if you look at that, Ben, and if you hadn't sprayed that, had that strip, you look at those beans, you're saying, boy, they don't look too bad.
Right. The ones on the left, yeah, they look like they're probably 30, 40, or 40, 50 bushel beans.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're not bad beans,
mm-hmm.
but it's just one more way to add more bushels.
Sure.
Ben, question for you as far as foliar fungicides. I mean, I think we've seen in the past quite a bit. Obviously, it's paid for itself as far as yield goes. When are the times where you would say a foliar fungicide would not pay for itself?
It wouldn't pay for itself if you continually don't get rain and you're in drought stress. We've seen that this year on the lighter soil types where you make that investment and Mother Nature didn't come through with the amount of rain to keep us pushing through pod fill on beans or to get the grain fill that we needed on corn on a more normal year. So western Iowa would be a perfect place where I'd be able to say, yeah, you guys didn't get the rain. Yeah, the beans prematurely died. You missed out on it this time, but that's not a normal growing condition for those areas.
Yeah, your bigger limiting factor was moisture, wasn't disease.
Correct.
So when guys are really looking to make that decision, they really want to look at the weather forecast in the upcoming weeks to help make that decision, so to speak. Because that's what I get a lot of questions with guys that hem-haw a little bit about on it. When's it pay for itself? And I think 9 times out of 10, everybody who pulls the trigger on it, they're pretty happy that they made that decision. So,
foliar fungicides have always shown to be beneficial in high yield environments. In other words, when you got all the other boxes checked, like Ben always says, and then you want to check that box off too to eliminate that limiting factor.
Correct.
when the timing to apply these things is R3 for the soybeans, and of course the effect of this is 2 months later, or a month and a half later. So it's really hard to figure out what that forecast is going to be.
Right. So, Tommy, you find a good long-term forecast, we can make some real money.
Yeah, either on the border trade or in the field, one of the two.
Right.
Turk, what do you got for us today?
Talking about weather, talking about rain, and we got a nice rain anywhere from 1 inch to 4 inches across the Midwest, and it's been cool all week. This last week, and next week looks like it's going to warm up and be more normal, and so this cool weather is actually going to cause the beans to get excited and mature, because beans mature by the length of the night. This cloudy days means a little bit longer nights, which is going to trigger the beans to mature a little bit quicker than they normally would if we had normal weather, I predict. And so I think there's going to be a lot of beans going to turn really quick here, very quickly. The rain is just about too late to help them, but I think it will help some of the beans that are still green. But corn, I don't think it's going to help much. But get the combine ready, because it's going to be here a lot quicker than we think it's going to.
That's good. Physiological maturity occurs, R7, first tinge of yellow on the pod. Mm-hmm. So yeah, we're definitely right there in this local area, real close.
And going to all the field days that we've gone to, this is the reason that you plant. In our area, this is the reason you plant from a 2.8 to a 4.0, because the 3.8s, 3.9s, and 4.0s are still hanging on. Those are the beans that are that are going to make the difference.
Spread out that risk.
Right. Some years you don't get that. And man, we talk about that at every single field day that I've been to the past 2 weeks, where they're like, man, our late season beans are still hanging on, or man, I wish I would have pushed the bubble and planted some later season beans, because this is what's going to make that. It's going to pull the whole farm average up. Yep,
it's no different than your stock portfolio in your retirement fund. You need to put a lot of different stocks, not all tech stocks. You want some of the others, so that no matter which way the weather goes, you're protected on your maturities.
Yep.
I always say, how long it's going to take you to run that combine, that's how many days your maturity spread should be.
Yep.
So if it takes 2 weeks to harvest soybeans, you should have a 2-week spread in your maturity. Is that correct?
Well, yeah. I don't think most everybody's going to combine beans quicker than 2 weeks nowadays, but some people spread that out so that they can intentionally spread out their combine.
Also maintain higher moisture too.
Yeah. And then again, it's not uncommon for somebody to start with a 2.3 and end up with a 4.0. It could be that wide a spread.
Right.
Tommy, what do you have for us today?
Yeah, I was wanted to tell you guys a little bit about what we're seeing out in the field. Ben had talked before the cast here that we have seen some tar spot kind of popping up, and especially in that central Illinois, northern Illinois area. Seen some gray leaf spot. Obviously, we've talked about that in the past weeks, but with what Turk was talking about with the rain, this is a perfect time to be getting those combines ready and getting all the settings and getting all your preparation ready, because I think when it dries off, guys, I think these things are going to be coming out pretty quick. They're going to go out and get the crop, especially trying to catch the corn before it gets entangled or goes down. And like Ben said, the soybeans, if they haven't reached R7 yet, they're benefiting a lot from this rain that we've gotten. But at the end of the day, you can really tell where the clay knobs are in the field right now. Just driving down the road, you can see the lighter soils. So guys, get the combines ready, and it's going to be full go when things dry off here, and I think you guys would agree down there as well.
Yeah, we'll be soon shifting to talking about yields and where the high yields are at, and because we'll know where they're at. But it's just around the corner, that's for sure.
Yeah, get those settings done, get your safety precautions checked off, and have a safe harvest, and be ready, so to speak.
I would like to just remind our farmers. This is the year you want to buy your seed before harvest, particularly if you're interested in Enlist E3 and LiberLink GT27. They're the products that are going to be in demand this year. So, get with your Merschman seed dealer today. Get your orders. I always say the only reason you wait to buy your seed is because you want to pay more. We know which ones are the high yielders. We got a lot of track record, a lot of experience. Put that portfolio together like we just talked about. That's the way you manage risk and as opposed to chasing the one that won this year, that's next year's weather is going to be different, guaranteed. So it's not necessarily the right way to go.
I will agree 100% with that, Joe. I'm very impressed with how many customers have come forward already and have bought their product for next year, knowing what's going to happen, and they don't want to get stuck out of position. A lot of farmers, customers that I've talked to already, they've said, well, I've been listening to Joe, and Joe's never steered me wrong, that if he tells me I need to get my beans ordered and so I'm not out of position, that's what I'm going to do. So kudos to those guys. But again, we got a long ways to go, and there's a lot of fog out there. So you kind of got to clear out and find the truth. And we're telling you guys that we need to get these things done fairly quickly. We got a pretty good supply, but we need to, the smart farmer wins this year by ordering early.
Well, it's a fact, Tommy, that the farmer who plans ahead usually makes more money too. I mean, that's just as opposed to waking up and saying, "Hey, I need seed. I'm going to go see what they have on down at the local seed dealer." That may not be the right way to manage your farm. So, anyhow, appreciate everybody's input. And I know, again, the highlight of this whole program is my jokes. Well, at least in my mind, anyhow. Anyhow, let's brighten your day a little bit. Okay, I got two for you today. Where are average things manufactured? The satisfactory. Oh, yeah, there you go. Mm-hmm. Now, we've been doing a lot of bar jokes, right?
I don't know why that's so funny, but it is.
The satisfactory, okay. Well, we do a lot of bar jokes.
It's a factory.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, satisfactory. Then we've been doing a lot of bar jokes, so I got another one for you here. A bear walks into a bar and says to the bartender, "Give me a whiskey and a cola." And the bartender says, "Why the big pause?" And the bear shrugs and says, "I don't know. I was born with them."
I've seen that one coming.
All right. Well, please be safe this week. Hope your family is healthy. Thank you for your support, and we'll see you next week. Hopefully some better jokes.